We have a very specific set of sequencing that that manages the distribution of those touch points over the course of a period of several weeks. I mean, it takes 2 to 3 months to get a customer sort of into the short list of live prospects that you're actually going to end up selling to.
Tell me more when you talk about how you do it, because everyone's business. Like, I'll just take the law firm, and I know our law firm has used you, and I've been amazed by things you've been able to accomplish as quickly as you have. But every firm, even every different law firm, has a different customer journey, has a different way of attracting clients, has a different way of getting to the point of having a conversation or a meeting.
Right.
How do you facilitate that, and what are the steps that it takes to get there?
Well,
You've done it amazingly quickly for our firm.
Yeah, that's a fair question, and it's not like we're trying to become experts in your particular specialty or field in the course of a week. What we're trying to do is to figure out what the initial messaging is at that sort of the tip of the spear to develop that curiosity about what it is that your firm does that's different, better, more effectively than your competitors, for example, so that that level of interest will carry forward into a conversation with you, so that you can present the goodness of your offering.
So let's take an entrepreneur. Let's take like a company that comes into our office to get started. They don't have a sales force yet. They think they have the beginning of a product. We help them with the intellectual property. We help them with the patents, the copyrights, the trademarks. We help them get some foothold in believing that they're going to have some defenses to some larger companies that might attack the space because they see something that no one else sees, but they don't know anything about selling. They really don't. I mean, they literally say, can you plug me into someone that can help me with sales, that can do something? How do you engage with a new startup like that? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. So there are lots of technologies available that both accelerate the sales process and enhance the sales process. So there are technologies that use AI to create highly personalized emails. Those are available. You could go out and select one of those. There are technologies that can create content directly from your website so that you don't have to sit down and write something yourself. There is we use the world's best telephone technology, which is a company called Connect and Sell, is right down the road here, that can produce 10 times the amount of live conversations that you can have with your prospects in a fraction of the time that you could by sitting down and doing all those dials. I think if you think about the metrics, it takes about 6,250 telephone dials just to get to 25 meetings, and meetings meaning a telephone meeting with a prospect. No one answers their phone anymore, right? So this is a very difficult time to try to figure out how to do outreach to your prospect base. So we take all of that off of the table for you. We've integrated the best of the breed in every one of these technologies. We put them all together. We cover every one of those touch points, and we do it in a sequenced way so that there's a cadence to the outreach. So over a period of a week to 2 weeks, we touch your prospect maybe 7 to 8 times through these various, social media touches. We use tools that go through LinkedIn, for example, so we leave very compelling LinkedIn messages combined with email messages, combined with an actual telephone call where we use, there's a human aspect of what we do. So we actually have a very highly trained team of sales development reps that take these calls that are also developed through Connect and Sell, and they develop them offshore using an offshore team to actually do this dialing. And then it goes through a technology that can actually transfer the call in less than 200 milliseconds. So by the time that the person being called is midway through saying, hello, this is Steve, you've already got that caller, you being our sales development reps.
So that's quite an advance.
Oh, it's a phenomenal advance, and their ability to do that, they do 5 million calls a month. I'm reminded, I was smiling as you were talking because I don't know if you remember that Will Smith
film Pursuit of Happiness, where he's kind of the down and out broke and otherwise unemployed individual, and he gets an opportunity to work at an investment firm, a stock trading firm. Of course, the firm is no longer in business, but he's literally got a call sheet, and he's dialing. I don't know if people remember the dialing part of dialing a ordinary telephone.
Yeah, you used to have rotary dials.
We remember it because we're old enough to, but the audience that's on Facebook may laugh saying, what, dial phone? I don't even remember it having push buttons on the physical, what's called the POTS line, the ordinary telephone
BlackBerry
line.
phones.
Yeah, I mean the ordinary type of phone. And he's just struggling his way through what you might say is the 6,000 plus dials that he has to make to get to the 25 interesting calls, which he finally gets through a few of those, and he starts getting some clients, and his life changes. Yeah. So you're outsourcing that without using a robot or a robocall. You're using actual operators who can make an actual effective call.
Well, then there's two levels of the operator, right? There's the offshore operator, and the reason why it has to be a human being is because the human being has to be able to tell the difference between a voicemail and an actual live voice, because we don't leave voicemails. There are services that leave voicemails. We don't believe in voicemails. We believe in live conversations. So when that human being offshore determines that it's an actual live voice, that's when the call is transferred. Then our guys pick up that call. It flips up on their CRM display. It says, "This is, Joe Lucas over at Nestle." And you say, "Hey, Joe, it's great to talk to you. Do you have, let me tell you just in a minute or so what we're doing, if that's something of interest to you." And so what our guys do in that sequence of call right there is to qualify that prospect, and then so Joe might say, "Yeah, you know what, I'm not interested," or, "Hey, you know what, yeah, actually, we're actually looking at that area right now, and it's something we might be interested in, and so, sure, let's set me up with your whatever CTO, CFO, CRO, whomever you're going to talk about, why your product and service is something that Joe wants to hear about." We're not trying to sell the product or service. We're trying to make sure that Joe is got budget, got pain, is looking at a solution that you offer as a prospect.
So this is where you would say there's some leverage that people who are trying to make sales early in the small business's existence can outsource. And how do the numbers compare, say, to the average sales rep who's hard to find because they're fairly expensive? I mean, I know sales reps that make more than some CEOs, literally, at some of these enterprise software companies. How do the numbers compare when you start doing this outsourcing? Do you use less of that talent? Can you use a different mix of that talent? What
well, just the easiest way to think about that is that the average sales rep today, sitting down and doing either dials or sending out emails or doing social media
not a good
touches,
use of their time, right?
Well, they do 50 a day. Actually, if you looked at the sales metrics from Aberdeen or from the Bridge Group, they say 46. But let's say 50 a day. We do 400 a day. Right, wow. So that's the equivalent of 8 of those guys sitting down there, doing that work. So, and we're able to do 400 a day because we've automated the processes for highly personalized emails, which the prospect thinks, my God, it must have come from a human being. We use AI robotics that crawl the web, they crawl social media sites, they look for things, they look for instances that they can convert to a personalized message, like a recent award you received or a job change that you made or your promotion that you had or what have you. Then they convert that into an email message that's very personalized. If you're sitting there trying to do that as a human sales rep every day, that's incredibly time consuming. You're doing that web scouring, you're doing the social media site crawling, you've got to compose the message. Most people can't write, right? I mean, it's not a skill anymore. And so we're able to do all that stuff. And then we've got this offshore group that's with this telephone technology that's generating thousands and thousands and thousands of calls throughout the day.
So when you look at who would be some of your potential customers, obviously we as a law firm believe what you're saying, and we get leads all the time from this show, from other Facebook, from LinkedIn, and we funnel those, and then they go off to your lead team, and we get really the qualification that these folks really want to engage with a lawyer. It saves time, and lawyers, frankly, don't like to do outbound calling.
Sure.
They think it's beneath them. They
It
want a
is
scheduled appointment.
Sure.
And I would assume that real estate brokers and title companies and a number of other professionals feel the same way. Is there some value equation that you say, well, the transaction should justify a number in this range to justify using the outsourced approach? Or do you say, no, really, almost anything can use this approach?
Anything can use the approach. We don't have to. Our typical model is at 400 sales activities per day for a fixed price. That's a fraction of the cost of hiring a sales rep, for example. But we look at ROI, if you just do it in terms of volume, right? Compare 400 to 50. I mean, that's 8 times, right? And then because we're doing it so fast, right? If you think about how long what if your message isn't really, resonating with the market? Well, it would take you, 12 weeks of 50 sales activities a day to learn that your message isn't resonating with the market. Use us. 3 days later, it's like, wait a minute, let me tell you, your messaging, isn't really the best it could be. And
so it sharpens it. And so we have to take a break, and let me just say,
sure.
You're the CEO. You've got a new startup, UberConnectForce.com. We so believed in it that we've become a customer. We think other lawyers will eventually become a customer. People can reach you you have an 800 number, right? 888-938-2968.
Right.
And Steve or S. King at UberConnectForce.com.
Right.
So we'll take a break, and we actually do stay live for a while on Facebook, but we take a break for the podcast. I'm sure we've gone over our time, but we've been lucky enough to have a good assistant here. Thank you. So I brought my.
Are we off the
air? Yeah, we're off the air. We're on the we're on the Facebook part, but now they take a break for the radio part. So I brought, just as a funny moment here, if someone's watching, they'll get a kick. I brought my Cal cap because my business school reunion is this weekend. I went to Cal Berkeley Haas School of Business, what seems like decades ago. And I was a much younger man back then, and it's really funny to get these emails from people that are like, yeah, now I have grandkids and I'm thinking about retiring, and, all these people that were in the class, some of them are like, I was lucky enough to invest in some early stage companies that have done exceptionally well, so I'm now set for life.
Right. That's great.
You get these stories, and you sort of crack up because you say, wow, I didn't think that guy was going to do that well. When he was in class in business school, I didn't think that he or she or whatever would do that well. It turns out that some of the people who you at least expected do the best financially, and some of the people that you think would do the best
do nothing.
And it was really funny because we had an entrepreneur come in today, and maybe I should tell the story in the podcast version, that said, yeah, we're trying to figure out a new market where literally we think a lot of businesses are going to get started in college, and we're going to help fund people in college. It's like, wow, this is a formalization of capital going into colleges for students who are like teaming or brainstorming. So the venture capital is getting earlier and earlier in the cycle. Now, I don't know if these people know how to sell.
Well, that's right. That's why we should open a branch at Wharton School.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Wharton,
Stanford, Berkeley, all the big business schools need this training, right?
Wharton sort of sees themselves as the center of the earth for market disruption.
Oh, okay.
Because they did Warby Parker.
Okay.
Two of those guys were Wharton guys, and then they.
Are you ready? We could tell that story. Are we back on?
Yeah.
We should go back on. We're back on right now? Okay. You press the button? Okay, we're back on, and those of you on Facebook know that we're subbing in for Joe. Don't worry, he's still alive. He's still well. He's probably golfing. It's a beautiful day out. He asked me to come in. I said I would do it, and I was lucky enough to have Steve King, a CEO of a recent startup that we've helped, UberConnectForce.com, which he's telling the story, and we were talking over the break about the fact that business schools don't teach people how to sell.
No.
Nor generally do any colleges, frankly.
No. Nobody likes
right?
to sell.
I mean,
Nobody,
it's almost like a bad word that
Right,
you're selling.
right,
I mean,
right.
this notion of persuasion, I like to say in law school, they teach you how to analyze a case, but they don't actually teach you how to tell a persuasive story.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of lawyers that are excellent lawyers, but if you ask them, so what's the story? Can you encapsulate that into 20 seconds? They look at you like, are you crazy? I've got a 25-page brief on this. I can't do that. But the best advocates, the best people at trial, in 20 seconds, they can explain the rest of the case that might take 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's an art to that.
Sure.
That's a real value add.
Sure.
Are you doing some of that? Because it must take a lot of digging into what is the value proposition for this particular law firm, this accounting firm, this real estate firm, this lending firm, this title firm. All those professionals, they all have stories.
Right, and
they differentiate, right?
Well, we think we're pretty good at marketing. I mean, we're good at messaging. We got a team of creatives that is outstanding, and we're able to sort of the whole idea here is not to develop a technical paper on why
Yes.
Your law firm has got that great specialty in IP or whatever, but to create curiosity, to make it different and better, right?
Yes.
Than your competitors, right? People, everything's storytelling
Yes.
at the end of the day.
Yes.
As you said, even a
Yes.
trial lawyer is a storyteller.
Well, if a
right?
trial lawyer isn't a storyteller, they probably aren't a trial lawyer, or they're not a successful trial lawyer.
Right.
And it's amazing how even the trial lawyers who didn't do that well in law school, I was talking about business school, but law school as well, some of them have done exceptionally well as trial lawyers because they simplified the story in a way that everyone gets.
Right.
And what I was amazed, and I'll give you a compliment, is I know some people in our office turned over to you like a pile of stuff, a brochure and a handbook and a bunch of ways in which we think we differentiate. And of course, you had our website, and you built a ton of new material that everyone looked at and said, wow, who did that and how fast did they do that? And that's amazing. And how did you accomplish it? Because we didn't spend more than a couple of hours talking in sort of interview format about, well, what does Computer Law Group do? How has it done it in Silicon Valley for the last now going on what seems like 4 decades? I mean, it's a little less than that, but it's a long time. And you were able to synthesize a lot of data.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do is create the beginning of kind of a mini branding process, right? Where we're going to begin to establish brand authority for you and then brand awareness, right? So it's not about branding isn't about a logo, it's about a story. It's
Yes.
about, and then what we're trying to understand immediately is what it is that makes you different, what it is that makes you better than your competitors, and that we want to encapsulate that uniqueness into a very crisp, clean, simple story that we can immediately start to tell. It gets that curiosity going. Now, ultimately, you're going to have to go in and explain why, your intellectual property defense and prosecution or whatever your deal happens to be is better,
Yes.
and what you've
Yes.
had success doing, and
Yes.
so forth and so on. We're simply trying to create that initial brand authority for you so that you
Okay.
have a platform on which to
So
go
it's
forward.
pretty sophisticated stuff because you're both building materials that will draw in new clients and maybe even existing clients when they see it, generate new leads, and then you're actually scheduling the calls using an automation system that makes sure those leads are harvested in a smart way. Because I think where lawyers fall down on the job, maybe all professionals, is someone calls in, it's a constant refrain, no one got back to me. No one got back to me for a day. I think, in fact, Donald Trump, in something I saw today, said something weird like, if someone I called didn't get back to me within a day, I would write them off. Mm-hmm. Like, that would not be someone I would ever use. And he was critical of, I think, something Comey said in some interview with him, and it's repeated by Comey in the recent stuff that's being published. But the point that he has is he's old school. You can like him, you can hate him, you can be indifferent about him, but he's old school. If you don't get back to him, it's disrespectful. So having someone who actually gets back to actually say, I'll schedule the call for Mr. Russo or schedule the call for one of the other lawyers in our offices. That's a huge positive thing.
Yeah,
even that alone.
And it's not just disrespectful. It's also a demonstration of your skill or lack of skill as a representative for your company, right? And so, in addition to being respectful, you want to demonstrate that you're efficient, that you're disciplined, that you're ready to execute.
Right.
And by waiting 2 or 3 days, and and it's not unique to law firms. I've been in the high technology business for like 120 years.
No,
right?
you haven't, but you have that much experience for sure.
And every high tech firm I know who gets in, this is a combination of inbound and outbound selling problem, right? So we've talked about outbound selling so far.
Right.
Inbound leads also aren't very useful if they aren't acted on really immediately, and I mean by within a couple hours. So the longer an inbound lead goes stale, the tougher it is for that person to even remember.
Right.
I did what? I contacted you? I don't remember contacting you.
Exactly.
Or you go to trade shows and you've got the fishbowl and you get all these cards dumped in there.
Right.
And then, what happens in larger companies, those leads go into marketing and they get entered into the CRM system, right? And that takes some time. It takes a long time. By the time the sales guy gets it, it's like a day later.
Right.
A day is a long time.
Right.
So our ability on the inbound side works exactly the same way. So those leads come in, we're on them in the same kind of efficient, rapid process that we do the outbound selling as well.
And so what a lot of entrepreneurs, and we're really now, I think Rainier will correct me, but I think we're at the 10th seminar, maybe the 11th. We're right around there. And we've talked about, you've created this business, you've gotten the technology mix right, you've gotten your own marketing materials right. You're probably eating your own dog food in terms of going out there and using this system to generate leads, to do follow-up, to have conversations, which are mostly by phone. Sometimes you might have a meeting, but by and large these days, I think Joe said on the last show, it's a funny thing that all these real estate people, including lending and title people, have these beautiful buildings. People don't even want to come to them anymore. They literally, a couple of shows ago, earlier this week, Joe was like, why are people paying for this huge infrastructure when the service that they're being provided is fundamentally a mobile-oriented service where the location of the building and its prowess and its skyscraper nature is kind of irrelevant to the delivery. The delivery model is how efficient are you in solving the customer's problem, which is typically very immediate, typically requires a real sense of trust, and typically means if you haven't called back quickly, you're not going to garner that trust.
Right.
And that's like lesson 101, I think, in all of business, and yet lots of people think, oh, I'll just send an email back, even when the person said, here's my phone number, please call me back. And they think, well, I'll just send an email back and say, please explain your case to me so I can evaluate it. That's not the way to do it.
That's right.
That's crazy.
And no one wants to get that email.
That's crazy because you have to put yourself in the shoes of that client that thinks the world is ending. They just got sued. I had this case today, this earlier this week, but I of course didn't get to the phone call right away. Shame on me. And I called the guy back. He said, "Yeah, I've talked to a few other lawyers, and I wish you would have called me sooner. You're obviously the more qualified guy, but frankly, I've already wired the retainer
Wired
to
money.
the other."
Wired money.
And of course, I said to the staff in my office, "This is the way it is in this world where everything is a much faster pace." I remember when I was a kid, God, it seems like so long ago, but you used to be able to respond to a letter in a week. You'd respond to a fax maybe in 3 days. Now, email that doesn't get responded within 2 or 3 hours, or a phone call that doesn't get responded the same day or maybe the next morning, you're just toast.
Yeah. Well, there's so much noise. There's so much noise, right? I mean, every how many emails do you get? The average executive gets 200 to 400 emails a day, right?
No. The funny part I should tell the people that are out there is every time I get an email from someone who's trying to buy my trust, I forward the email to Steve saying, I think this is a potential client for you, Steve, because this person doesn't realize that they'd be better off getting a phone meeting or some real trusting scenario set up as opposed to firing lots of emails at me. Because the truth is, I'm not going to respond to those emails, and we're not going to have a conversation. There's not going to be trust. Therefore, there's not going to be a transaction. Now, that has to be managed correctly and has to be done correctly, but it can be done. And when it is done correctly, I think there is the potential for a very long-term client, which is really what law firms should be after. Clients that you look back and say, boy, like Joe Kuchera has been a client of the firm in one rendition or another for probably over 25 years.
Yeah.
And you have been a client of the firm in one form or another for over 15 years.
Yeah, and that's why the multi-channel process is so important. In that is because what you're trying to do is establish a relationship. You don't do that with a phone call. You don't do it with an email. You certainly don't do it with an email. You don't do it with a text message. You don't do it with social media. A lot of people are big on the LinkedIn Navigator tool. I know sales guys that just do nothing all day long
Right.
with LinkedIn Navigator. Well, I mean, that's easy,
Yes.
and it's lazy,
But
and
does
it
it
doesn't
work?
produce a result.
Well, you have some actual statistics you should talk about, because I've seen some of your spreadsheets beyond the 6,000 dials convert. There's actually some metrics that you have to take this client or customer down the path of, because it might be more than one phone meeting that's scheduled that leads to another phone meeting and a follow-up and other activity where the client is evaluating, do you know what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Can you deliver the service? Do you have the time to do it? Are your prices reasonable? Am I going to get value for my money? Am I going to be satisfied? Are you going to provide references? Are there other people I should talk to? How do I compare you against a bigger law firm or a smaller law firm? And the funny story I'll tell on this, and then you can comment, is recently I had a conversation with a partner at a big law firm. Both will remain nameless. But they said, yeah, we finally realized at a big firm that we have to get better at initial client interaction. So we hired a professional video professional to come in and videotape the way we interact with people.
to prove that
we're not screaming at them, that we're being empathetic, that we have some EQ. Because lawyers can have a terrible reputation of telling clients, well, that was pretty stupid. Yeah, I would have done this differently. And it's all negative. And, clients, they probably do have to hear some of this, but most of them want to hear, what's the solution?
Right.
I know I'm in a problem. I know there's some quicksand. I know that it feels like I'm, sinking deeper and deeper into this problem, but don't tell me how stupid I was to jump into this, pool of quicksand. Tell me how I'm going to get out of it. Right.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important aspect to the delivery of the service, and the quality of the initial contact probably dictates, what's the right saying? There's no way to make up for a bad first impression.
Sure. Right.
You only get one shot to make a good first impression.
Right,
Pretty
right.
much that's the deal.
And that's why the people component of this is so important. The guys that are on our team that are actually making that initial contact, that initial voice-to-voice call, right? That initial relationship they understand how to do this. They're very, very good at it. So you typically why
Probably
would
better
why
than
would
most
you,
lawyers.
Well, I was going to say, why would you try to do that yourself?
Right.
It's not. It's as you said earlier, it's an art. There's a bunch of science underneath it, as we've talked about these emerging technologies and so forth that we leverage. But there's an art to developing a relationship.
So I think I've gone over everything, Steve. Let's just summarize by saying, obviously, what you have is for more than just lawyers. It's really for anyone and everyone that are doing professional services and selling, or even selling anything, enterprise softwares, enterprise hardware, or maybe even any type of transaction that's not kind of an Amazon type commodity.
Anything of value, because our contention is you don't sell things of value over the internet. It does not happen. You can enhance stuff and with all those social media touches and email and all the rest of that. But if you're going to sell something of value, you have to have a conversation with a buyer, and you have to have established trust, and you have to establish authority in the space, and that buyer has to believe that your solution makes sense for his or her problem. And again, that's why this conflation of people and process and technology is so important to the outcome for what we do. If you're selling cell phones or you're selling bottle of water or something,
right.
This is probably not the right thing for you to do. But anything of value, you have to you need to make a determination about what's your customer acquisition cost today, what is the customer life of the contract value going to be. So if you're selling mattresses, for example, you're going to sell a $1,200 mattress. You're probably going to sell one of those every 5 to 10 years for that customer, right? So you have to figure out some other stuff to sell in addition to that to make that make sense.
But you have a point that we'll wrap up on.
Go ahead.
You can use this even with existing customers to refresh the fact that you're in business, you're there to serve them, you're willing to have a phone call about something that you offer.
Sure.
So that's a big plus.
Sure.
So we're out of time, but this has been fantastic. And I'm Jack Russo from Computer Law Group. I've been lucky enough to have Steve King, the CEO of a startup called UberConnectForce. He can be contacted at UberConnectForce.com. The toll-free number is 888-938-2968. It's Steve at UberConnectForce.com or sking at UberConnectForce.com. I'm Jack Russo. I'm at jrusso at ComputerLaw.com, 650-327-9800. If you have questions, you could send them in via email, via Facebook. I think Steve has been kind enough to give us some of his time this afternoon. I'm sure he'll give more time to people that are interested in learning more about what he offers. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.